NR Academy is a professional training center based on modern and innovative educational standards. The main goal of our academy is to reveal the potential of each student, support their academic and personal development, and show the right direction leading to success. We believe that success is not a coincidence, but the result of proper education, continuous development, and purposeful activity. NR Academy provides students with not only theoretical knowledge, but also practical skills that can be applied in real life. Our educational programs are prepared based on modern methodologies and innovative approaches, and presented in an interactive and result-oriented manner. Each student is given an individual approach, and a development strategy is formulated in accordance with their goals. Our academy organizes high-quality trainings on applicant preparation, psychology, personal development, public speaking and communication skills, body language, emotional intelligence, and professional development programs for trainers. These programs develop the knowledge and skills of participants, creating conditions for them to succeed in both their academic and professional lives. The main advantages of NR Academy are professional and experienced trainers, modern and innovative teaching methods, certified programs, online and face-to-face learning opportunities, as well as a practical and results-based approach. The education model offered at our academy is specially designed to support students' future career success. Our mission is to add value to society through knowledge and development, and our vision is to become one of the leading and influential education brands in the region.
NR Academy provides students with not only education, but also self-confidence, leadership, and a successful future. Don't leave your future to chance. Take the first step on the path to success today. Develop your knowledge with NR Academy, discover your potential, and achieve your goals with confidence. Nuray Rahimli is a trainer and education entrepreneur working in the field of modern education and personal development. He approaches education not only as a means of transferring theoretical knowledge, but also as a development process that shapes a person's mindset and prepares them for real life. The NR Academy he created is based on an innovative educational model, and the main goal here is to develop both academic and personal skills of students. In addition to preparing applicants, the Academy provides training in areas such as psychology, personal development, public speaking, communication skills, body language, and emotional intelligence. Nuray Rahimli's approach is based on individual development. He individually assesses the potential of each student, reveals their strengths, and purposefully shapes their development path. The main principle in his work philosophy is practical learning and result-oriented development. That is, the goal is not just to provide information, but to transform that knowledge into skills that can be used in real life. In general, Nuray Rahimli acts as an educational leader who aims to support young people in self-knowledge, self-confidence, and making better decisions in their future lives. NR Academy, your reliable partner on the path to success. Contact 077 345 50 20. If a person is constantly exposed to negative news, comparisons, and focuses on distractions, this affects the quality of his thinking. If he focuses his attention on development, learning, and useful activities, the results will change accordingly. Over time, a person learns to better manage his emotions. He understands that not every feeling is for immediate reaction. Sometimes it is enough to just observe. Emotions are a signal that comes and goes, but when a person does not control them, those emotions begin to control his behavior. This often leads to decisions that he will later regret. On the other hand, a person realizes that the concept of perfection is also an illusion. He understands that nothing is ideal on the first try. On the contrary, development is built on mistakes. Making mistakes is not a weakness, but part of the process. When a person accepts this, he is no longer afraid of mistakes and acts more freely. At this stage, a person no longer depends on external influences. He does not completely ignore the opinions of others, but he does not direct his life according to their opinions. Because he understands that everyone evaluates the world according to his own experience, and this assessment is always objective, does not. At the same time, a person also learns the concept of patience. He understands that real results take time. The search for quick results often leads to superficial successes, but lasting and deep results require time and patience. This requires long-term thinking. As a result of all these processes, a person now approaches his life more consciously. He understands that his thoughts, habits, and decisions are interconnected and each affects the other. When he tries to change himself, he understands that it is important to change not only his behavior, but also his thinking system. And finally, a person comes to the conclusion that change never happens suddenly. It is a gradual process. By taking a small step every day, making a little better decision every day, and acting a little more consciously every day, a person can have a completely different life over time. This change may seem instantaneous from the outside, but in fact it is the result of a long-term internal process. When a person understands this, he stops waiting. He does not say, "I will start someday." He understands that the best time for change is now, and it is this decision, the decision to start, that is the most important point in the whole process. At this point, it becomes clear to the person that focus is everything. He accepts that the desire to do everything at once is unrealistic, because the more attention is divided, the weaker the result. When a person chooses a direction and focuses on it continuously, the results become clearer and stronger. This requires patience and discipline. The person also understands that success is not measured only by the result. In fact, success is formed in the process. When a person gets a little better every day, when he develops himself a little more every day, he is already on the path to success. The result is a natural continuation of this process. This thinking frees a person from attachment to the result and helps him focus on the process. At this stage, the person already approaches mistakes differently. He sees a mistake not as a personal failure, but as information. Every mistake shows him what is not working, and this information helps him make a better decision for the next step. This approach makes a person more flexible and more resilient. At the same time, the person understands that it is impossible to control everything. There will always be uncertainty in life. But instead of running away from this uncertainty, you need to learn to live with it. A person can only control his thoughts, behavior, and reactions. Other factors will always be variable. This understanding makes a person calmer and more stable. He no longer panics in every situation, because he knows that the main thing is not the situation, but his reaction to it. This means the formation of emotional strength. At the end of all these processes, a person also changes his attitude towards himself. He no longer sees himself as someone who is constantly criticizing, but as someone who is developing himself. He becomes more realistic and more understanding towards himself. Because he understands that change takes time, and everyone develops at his own pace. And the most important point emerges here. A person no longer waits. He no longer waits for the ideal conditions, the ideal time, the ideal motivation. He understands that these conditions will never be fully formed. The best time is always now. The moment a person makes this decision, a real turn in his life begins. Because he already leaves the stage of thinking and moves to the stage of action. He takes small steps, makes mistakes, learns, and continues. Over time, these steps combine and turn into big changes. And in the end, a person comes to the following conclusion. What changes his life is not a single big decision, but a collection of small but conscious decisions that he makes every day. And these decisions shape his identity. As a person changes who he is, his life also begins to change. And these decisions shape his identity. As a person changes who he is, his life also begins to change. He now understands that every choice, every behavior is not just a momentary decision, but a step that determines his identity and the direction of his life in the future. As a person changes himself, his way of thinking changes, his feelings become more stable, and he can look at every situation more clearly. He understands that past mistakes are only a source of information. They do not hold him back, but on the contrary, prepare him to take smarter steps in the future. A person now does not see events in life only as coincidences. He understands that each event is completed by his ability to react and his choice. The same situation produces different results in different people, because the result depends not only on the circumstances, but also on the way a person thinks and behaves. This awareness makes a person more responsible, because he knows that remaining inactive, indecisive, or passively reacting affects his future. He understands that although internal change begins only with thought, it is completed with behavior. A person gradually changes his habits, daily routines, and ways of thinking, thereby becoming a more purposeful and focused person. Small steps, continuous learning, and honesty with himself make him stronger. He no longer thinks only about what is possible, but also seeks answers to the question, how will I do it? A person also reevaluates the concept of time. He understands that every moment is an opportunity, and the value of each moment depends on his attention. Now he focuses his attention not on things that distract him, but on activities that energize and develop him. Social comparisons, empty doubts, and insignificant worries no longer distract him. He focuses only on his goals and values. At this stage, a person learns to control his emotions. He does not block his feelings, but accepts them as a source of information, not for reaction. Fear, anxiety, and hesitation cannot hold him back. On the contrary, he reads them correctly and turns them into action. The person understands that emotions are only a warning. The ability to direct them correctly is power. The person also realizes that he must understand boundaries. It is impossible to control everything in life, but what he can control, his thoughts, reactions, habits, and decisions, is enough to shape his life. He is no longer a slave to the influences of others, but he does not completely reject the opinions of others. He simply evaluates them objectively and accepts only those that are in line with his own values. As a result of internal change, a person's surroundings also change. As he becomes more positive and purposeful, people's approach to him, relationships, and social dynamics also change. This effect creates a domino effect. A person changes, affects those around him, and as a result, small changes lead to major social and personal transformations. A person is no longer afraid of every mistake. Mistakes are valuable not because they weaken him, but because they strengthen him. Every mistake gives him information, and every failed attempt makes him smarter. A person understands that there is no perfection, and development is possible only through action and learning. And most importantly, a person no longer gives up the habit of waiting and postponing. He understands that there is no ideal time. Ideal conditions will never be fully formed. The right time for change and development is now, and the moment he starts to act, all internal processes accelerate and every area of his life is shaped by his will. A person is no longer just a reactant. He is the author of his life, a creator who shapes his identity with every step and decision. Every thought, every choice, every feeling determines his inner strength and the direction of his life. A person understands that true freedom lies in inner strength, and the one who uses it is on the path to becoming a stronger, more conscious, and more purposeful person every moment. A person understands that every internal change not only makes him a different person, but also affects every detail of his life. He no longer just reacts to the events that happen, but learns to turn them to his advantage. Every thoughtful step, every purposeful action makes him the author of his life. He is no longer a prisoner of random events, but consciously shapes every moment. He understands that the pace of internal development depends on his attention. Distracting factors, social media, criticism of others, empty doubts, can no longer steal his energy. He focuses only on his values, goals, and desires. This focus makes him more productive, purposeful, and strong. A person does not perceive emotions only as feelings. He analyzes them as a source of information. Fear, hesitation, and excitement no longer stop him. On the contrary,